Soul Calibur 4 was a successful return to form that introduced the series to the next generation of consoles. However, from how the story was told, this was supposed to be the final game in the series, with the ending being ambiguous on purpose. But the game was a hit between the home console release and the PSP port called Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, so another sequel would definitely be in the cards. However, things are rather busy in the offices of Bandai Namco in 2010. There's a messy history involving the incredibly short production cycle of Soul Calibur 5, and it stems from its manpower being outsourced to finishing development of Tekken Tag 2. The game had only 1 year of development with an unmoving early 2012 release, and many planned features were cut because there was no time to implement them. But I had no idea this was going on at the time. I was still reeling at the fact that they got Ezio Auditore from Assassin's Creed. That trailer's still cool, I don't care what anybody says. That aside, I was also skeptical of the new characters that were prominently teased in the promotional material. This was a time-skip game similar to Tekken 3, where new characters are introduced to replace the older ones and hopefully inject new life into the series. Obviously that didn't pan out, but I'll get to that soon enough. I got this game day one via Best Buy pre-order, which was the only way you'd have access to Dompier for the first month of release. My feelings are all over the place, to the point where I debated to myself if it was any good or not. But it's been 12 years, and I've changed quite a bit. Maybe my opinions on Soul Calibur 5 will change. I do know what hasn't changed: my opinion of the story. Because of the short dev cycle, Soul Calibur 5 was originally planned to have a bigger story mode than what we got in here. Individual character campaigns, a girthy main story mode, actual character biographies. We got none of those things here aside from the main story mode, which only lasts about 2 hours. It's divided into 20 chapters with their own battles to play through and cutscenes in between. Sometimes you get the CG render cutscenes, but these are few and far between. Most of the time, the story is presented in bland still images where you can barely tell what's going on. Fortunately, the story is linear and not an IKEA project like the other games, so I can sum it up like I see it here. It begins with the final showdown between Siegfried and Nightmare, with the former barely squeaking out a win and the latter being annihilated. Cut to a mere 17 years later, where despite Nightmare's death, the cursed sword Soul Edge still uses its evil influence to turn people into violent psychopaths called the Malfested. Enter Patroclus, who from this point forward I'll be referring to as Patty. He's the son of Sophidia, who aims to hunt down the Malfested and find his kidnapped sister Pyrrha. Patty works under the Count of Hungary named Graf Dumbass. Dumbass, who is obviously evil and is manipulating the lad into killing innocent civilians. Though to be fair, Patty here doesn't really come off as a competent hero from the start, as he can't tell the difference between normal people and possessed rage demons.
How unfortunate there's no way to prove it.
One day he comes across a man of the wolf stand who makes him question Dumbass's loyalty. He confronts the Count, only for the Count to run away and sick Voldo on him. What was he doing here? With only his mission to find his sister, he meets with Siegfried, who upon meeting him, gives him Soul Calibur. He explains the Spirit Sword chose Patty to be its new wielder, and it lost a lot of its power 17 years ago. He also explains that a girl with a ring blade was sighted near where they are, and Patty rushes in to avenge his family. We're then introduced to Pyrrha, daughter of Sophidia and willing captor of Tira, who's been very busy the last 17 years. She's been forcing Pyrrha here to murder people in various towns in order to groom her to be the new suitable vessel for Soul Edge. And being a mess of trauma and developing a major case of Stockholm Syndrome, there's nothing else Pyrrha can really do. That is until Patty challenges Tira and reclaims his sister after all this time. The two try to go home when they're suddenly stopped by Graf Dumbass, who apparently had Soul Edge the entire time. This guy's the new Nightmare who's been manipulating Patty into harvesting souls to increase his power. Pyrrha steps in to help, but her Malfested nature comes out and scares her brother away. Patty goes crying to Zwei and Siegfried, and both agree he's not ready to wield Soul Calibur if he can't cut down his own sister. But the spirit of the sword, named Elysium, tells Patty he should awaken its true power so he can gain the new ability to save Pyrrha. And it's here that the Spirit Sword morphs into a form Patty's more comfortable with. Instead of imitating the sword and shield fighting style of his mother, his true calling is imitating the drawblade style of Setsuko. What a shitty protagonist. He goes off to find Ivy, who may know how to reawaken Soul Calibur given her history with the two swords. Fortunately, she does know, but she needs the 3 sacred treasures to do it. I will give him credit for remembering that Soul Calibur was originally created at Yuga, which was Shanghua's weapon. So all they need now is the Kali Yuga and the Vakra Yuga. Ah, sweet, Keelik had both of those for the last few games. Maybe he'll show up here. Pfft, don't be silly. It's these two who conveniently show up to help, along with Taki's young people and Maxie for some reason. Patty proves his worth and they go to Ivy with the sacred treasures in tow. The ritual to reawaken Soul Calibur is a success. Kind of. Elysium shows up again and gives Patty a foreboding message.
Good boy. I am so proud of you. Now, let's go and kill Pyrrha. Together.
Let the hate flow through you.
Then he encounters Pyrrha, who's now wielding Soul Edge, and actually kills her. Do we get the bad ending here? Well, not really. This text crawl is a bait and switch, as Patty regrets his actions and is sent to the void of astral chaos. Here he meets Edgemaster, who gives him sage advice, and he travels back in time when Soul Calibur was reawakened. This time, however, he rejects the autonomous killing intent of the Spirit Sword, and his soul is banished to astral chaos again. He meets with Edgemaster again, and learns to command his blade and return back to the real world. But before he enters the phrase, Y ends up fighting and defeating Nightmare, only to be killed by Pyrrha. She claims Soul Edge and tears the fabric of reality a new one in the process. Patty confronts his sister, this time making sure not to kill her, and instead separate her from the cursed sword. He succeeds, but Soul Calibur freezes him in retaliation to not destroying Soul Edge's host. Pyrrha comes to her senses and tries to free her brother from the outside, all while Patty battles Elysium internally to prevent his body from being stolen. He prevails and returns to reality, and the two siblings finally destroy both Soul Calibur and Soul Edge. Their trauma no longer looming over them, they head home to live peacefully. And that's the whole story. It just kind of ends abruptly. I'm still not a huge fan of this game's plot, or even the characters that act within it. Patroclus is a cocky, hot-headed nitwit who acts with a warped sense of justice that probably owes to the fact that his mother is dead. Even when he finds his true calling in not emulating his mother's fighting style and learning humility and responsibility, he doesn't feel like the type of protagonist you want to see succeed. He's not endearing in any way, he's not entertaining to watch, he's just a lame main character, and it's a damn shame. Pyrrha honestly isn't much better, though that one plot point from 3 and 4 could have borne better fruit if they were given more time to work on this game. She basically plays the victim of circumstance, wanting companionship in a world that wants her dead for being the chosen vessel for Soul Edge. It's only at the very end where she does something that isn't giving in to whatever's more powerful than her. And yes, that even includes her own brother, and I can't help but feel that this could have been handled better. The supporting cast are just here to accentuate the two leads. Zwei is the only other character you play as in the story mode, and we barely know anything about him. Why he's allied with Siegfried, why he hates Nightmare, why he has a wolf spirit, nothing. Hell, we don't even get anything regarding the other new characters like Viola or the three amigos here. I think I might have read online that maybe Shiba here is the abandoned child of Kilik and Changhua, but the game doesn't elaborate on any of these characters' backgrounds. The whole story mode is completely undercooked, with little time to explore its characters or give us an entertaining plot that runs as long as a feature-length movie. And for the supposed end of these two swords that drove the plot across 6 titles, it was underwhelming and disappointing to say the least. The arcade mode isn't much better, as there are no story segments whatsoever. All you do is choose a route, fight a few battles, and that's it. No prologues, no ending, nothing. It just goes to show how little time Project Soul had to work on this game, when even the arcade mode is as barren as it is. But at least they had time to spruce up the gameplay a bit. It's about the same as it was in 4, with a few noticeable changes. Your soul gauge is now a super meter that fills up when you attack or take damage. You can use the meter in 2 ways. The first is the Brave Edge, a follow-up attack that deals a bit of extra damage like EX specials in other fighting games. I often forget I can do this, as most of the attacks in Soul Calibur use directional inputs rather than quarter circle motions, and pressing all 3 attack buttons, or R2 after landing specific moves, doesn't feel natural to me. The other method is Critical Edge, which has changed from how it was in 4. Instead of being an instant kill move, the cast have access to cinematic super arts that you can combo into. Double Core Circle 4 plus all 3 buttons is the universal super command, and they all vary depending on who you're playing as. Some of these are neat, but others are lacking in flare damage. Aside from that, the combat feels similar to the other games, except the overall control is much tighter and faster than before. Battles are fast and can be as frantic as ever, though it may take some getting used to, especially if you like doing guard impacts. The universal impact command is gone, and the only way to parry incoming attacks is to use a specific move that can impact already. This is one change I don't like, as every character has a different impact command, and it can be annoying to find where it is for specific members of the cast. Maybe they thought 4 plus guard was too broken, or maybe it slowed down the combat? I don't know. There are 28 different fighting styles to play with here, 29 if you count the Devil Jin style exclusive for the created characters. Most of the cast return from earlier entries with a handful of newcomers and inheritors. Lei should play similar to Xianghua, Natsu is the new Taki, etc. Only 3 new characters that don't slap most people in the face though. Viola is a puppet master character similar to Carl Clover from BlazBlue, who uses her orb not to ponder, but to smack the opponent around. Zwei is pretty cool too. He's a stand user that combos from mid to close distance. Ezio Auditore, the guest character from Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, is probably the only one in the series so far that makes sense timeline-wise. It also helps that he's pretty fun to fight as, using his various tools of destruction, all just to make his foes requiescat in pace. The combat can be fun, but I still think the battle systems in the last 4 games are more fulfilling in comparison. But the amount of time you're spending playing these battles is a different story altogether. There honestly isn't much going on in single-player modes this time around. There's the story mode, which can be cleared in 2 hours, the arcade ladders, which you can clear all the routes in about 1 hour. There are quick battles to fight against CPU opponents to take their titles.
Pepe Sylvia, this name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail, well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia!
And legendary battles where you can take on the hardest boss characters the game can throw at you. There's also local versus in practice, and the Created Soul returns and behaves as it did in Soul Calibur 4. The only difference is you don't use gold to buy items or weapons anymore, and you have a few new tools to customize with, like adjustable items, stickers, or patterns to put on clothing. The skill system from the last game is gone, and you're free to customize your characters without any limits. How you unlock stuff in this game feels more grindy than it did before though. Every time you battle in any mode, this experience bar fills a little, and reaching specific level thresholds unlocks certain items like customization equips, secret characters, and stages. It's only a matter of time before you reach the max level and unlock everything, but that's assuming you're willing to keep playing the game once you've done everything else. The main way they expected you to gain experience points in this game is to play the online mode, which I guarantee nobody is playing. Soul Calibur 5 recently got delisted off the online stores, and the 360's Xbox Live functionality isn't working so great anymore, so you'd be hard-pressed to try any online play if you decide to pick it up in 2024. I only played a bit of the online when the game was new, and it wasn't great, so it's about the same as 4's online. I don't know about this one. Soul Calibur 5 is a pretty mid-sequel, all things considered. The story is bland, the single-player content is lacking, the new characters aren't as memorable as the missing veterans, and the ones that do return make you wonder why they bother with this approach in the first place. I want to like Soul Calibur 5 more than I do, as the gameplay can be fun, the music is catchy and fit the stages well, and the game looks and sounds great. It's a mixed bag with little reason to return to it, and it's rather sad that it could have ended with this game. Sure, there was some DLC and a few updates to fix certain aspects of the game post-launch, but all that stopped after a year, and a lot of people dropped it altogether. I would say that this was the low point in the series. Then Bandai Namco put out the free-to-play online fighter Soul Calibur Lost Swords in 2014, which was so broken on release that it became the new low. At that point, I was sure Soul Calibur would be another great series left to collect dust on the shelf of history. But they weren't exactly quite finished with it yet. Tune in next time as we look at the final game in the retrospective, Soul Calibur 6. Until then, thank you all for watching, and have an awesome day.
Requiescat in pace. Soul Calibur 5.